I wasn't looking for giants when I started this investigation. Let me be completely clear about that. I wasn't some guy sitting in his basement with a corkboard full of red strings connecting newspaper clippings. I wasn't chasing myths. I wasn't trying to prove something I already believed. I was just a researcher doing what researchers do, following the evidence wherever it led. And where it led me changed everything I thought I knew about human history. It started with architecture. Not giants, not skeletons, not ancient conspiracies buried under centuries of deliberate silence. Just buildings. Old buildings. Buildings that didn't quite make sense. I'd been studying architectural anomalies for a couple of years at that point. Strange proportions in old structures. Doorways that seemed too tall. Staircases that felt oddly oversized. Ceilings that stretched far beyond what any practical purpose would demand. Furniture that looked slightly off, like it was built for someone just a little bit bigger than you. I treated all of it as historical curiosity at first. Decorative excess, ceremonial architecture, the kind of design choices wealthy societies made simply to impress visiting dignitaries. Nothing unusual enough to really question, nothing that kept me awake at night. Nothing that made me think I was standing on the edge of something enormous. Until I found the photographs. Not paintings, not myths, not stories passed down through generations that could be explained away as exaggeration or folklore. Photographs, actual photographs, taken with real cameras on real film during the mid to late 1800s. And these photographs showed individuals, real human beings, standing at heights that simply shouldn't have been possible. 8 feet tall, 9 feet tall, some of them appearing to push 10 feet, standing right next to completely normal-sized people. No tricks, no forced perspective, no theatrical staging, just people, impossibly large people, standing in the frame, like it was the most natural thing in the world. My first instinct was exactly what yours probably is right now. Fake. Early photographic manipulation. Some kind of carnival trick dressed up to look legitimate. But the more I examined these images, and I mean really examined them, not just glanced at them and moved on, the less that explanation held up. The lighting was consistent throughout every frame. The shadows fell at the correct angles. The grain of the film matched perfectly across the entire image. The giant figures and the normal-sized people standing beside them. These photographs were taken decades before any technology existed to convincingly alter an image. We're talking about an era when faking a photograph required physical manipulation of the negative, cutting, splicing, painting directly onto the glass plate. And these images showed none of that. None. Zero evidence of manipulation. And that's when the official explanations started falling apart, one by one, like dominoes. The deeper I went, the more photographs I found, carte de visite portraits, from the 1860s pulled from estate collections across the American Midwest. Cabinet cards from the 1870s preserved in university archives that hadn't been opened in decades. Tintype images sitting in the back rooms of small-town historical societies, places where nobody thought to look because nobody was asking the right questions, and every single one of these photographs showed the same thing. Men, and occasionally women, towering over the people around them. Not circus performers, not advertised attractions with stage names and traveling routes that could be historically verified. Not medical curiosities displayed for profit. Just people. Regular people photographed in formal settings, wearing the ordinary clothing of their time, sometimes standing beside family members of completely normal height, looking at the camera like there was nothing remarkable about them at all. The British Museum archives contain multiple examples, filed quietly under anthropological curiosities and rarely shown to the public. The Smithsonian Institution references similar photographs in footnotes, usually dismissing them as isolated medical anomalies and moving on without further investigation. French National Archives contain comparable images. Russian imperial records mention individuals of unusual stature serving in ceremonial and official governmental roles. And every single time, the same pattern emerges. The institutions acknowledge these individuals. They categorize them. They file them away. and then they move on. No follow-up investigation, no deeper inquiry. No attempt to understand what these photographs actually represent. Just silence. Official, deliberate, institutional silence. But here's where the photographs revealed something even more disturbing. In many of these images, the individuals aren't just standing in open fields or portrait studios, they're standing in front of buildings. Enormous buildings. Buildings with doorways that look absolutely absurd by modern standards, yet appear perfectly proportioned for someone standing 9 feet tall. And once you notice it, you cannot stop noticing it. I started measuring doorways, not just ceremonial. Entrances, interior doorways, working corridors in government buildings constructed during the 1700s and 1800s. Administrative offices where theatrical grandeur would serve absolutely no practical purpose. Many of these doors measured 12 to 15 feet high. Some pushed even further. And these weren't rare exceptions. They appeared consistently, across dozens of buildings, in multiple countries, on multiple continents. Then there were the staircases. Steps built at a rise so high that an average person today has to stretch awkwardly and uncomfortably to climb them. Not the elegant, wide, shallow steps of ceremonial architecture designed to make visitors feel important. Steep, functional steps, working staircases, built for daily use, built for people whose legs were significantly longer than ours. And then there was the furniture. Desks positioned at heights that would force a normal-sized person to stand on their toes just to work comfortably at the surface. Chairs with seat heights measuring 30 to 36 inches from the floor, nearly double the standard human seat height used in furniture today. Backrests towering 7 and 8 feet tall, armrests positioned at levels completely unreachable for an average human without straining. Every single curator and historian I encountered labeled these pieces decorative Victorian furniture. Statement. Pieces designed to impress. Symbolic objects representing power and authority. But here's what none of them could adequately explain. Many of these chairs came directly from government buildings, courthouses, administrative offices, working spaces where daily business was conducted, places where impressing visitors was secondary to getting work done. And the pattern didn't stop at a single building or a single region. It appeared thousands of times across American courthouses. Administrative buildings across Western and Eastern Europe. Government complexes across Russia and Central Asia, colonial administrative offices in India and South America, all built during roughly the same historical period, all sharing the same oversized proportions, and all defended by historians with the same explanation. Aesthetic choice, artistic exaggeration, symbolic architecture designed to project power, despite the enormous additional cost of building at those proportions. Despite the clear practical impracticality for normal-sized human beings, despite the fact that the same proportions appeared independently across cultures that had no documented contact with each other. Unless the people using these buildings weren't normal-sized, unless they were built exactly the right size for, exactly the right people. And that's when something called Tartaria entered the picture. If you've never heard of Tartaria, you're not alone. And that's not an accident. Tartaria appears on maps, real maps. Official maps produced by respected cartographers during the 1700s and early 1800s. It's labeled as a vast territory stretching across northern and central Asia. An enormous region given the same geographical certainty as France, Spain, or England. This wasn't a legend. It wasn't a mythological kingdom invented by storytellers. It appeared in respected atlases. It appeared in encyclopedias. It was documented with the same matter-of-fact confidence as any other nation on Earth. And then something happened. Something that nobody has ever adequately explained. By the mid-1800s, Tartaria vanished from maps. Not conquered. Not dissolved through political negotiation. Not absorbed into a neighboring empire through a documented process of annexation. Just gone. Maps were redrawn. Encyclopedia entries were quietly removed. History books stopped mentioning it. And the historical record, the official historical record, simply moved on as if Tartaria had never existed at all. But the architecture remained. Across Central Asia, across Russia, across Mongolia, enormous stone structures still stand. Massive buildings featuring precise engineering and construction techniques that historians struggle to fully explain. Structures that local empires supposedly built, yet without the detailed construction records you would expect for projects of that scale and complexity. And many of those structures feature the exact same oversized proportions we see everywhere else. Doorways large enough for giants. Hallways built on a massive, inhuman scale. Spaces that feel like they were designed for people significantly larger than any human being alive today. The photographs weren't the end of the evidence. They were just the beginning.